Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Chime In with Jaleesa. And we are back after months of a hiatus that I didn't necessarily intend to take, but it happened, and here we are months later. So the last time y'all heard from me was June. I was getting ready to go to Dallas, go home, move out of Philly, and hopefully get a new job. Fast forward to now, I have moved out of Philly, I went to Dallas, I was home for a bit, and I have a new job. So I want to give you guys a little recap, and then we'll get into everything I'm kind of working through now and what all that looks like for me as a 24-year-old living on my own. So starting with Dallas, the show was amazing. I went to go watch the You Should Know podcast live show with Peyton and Cam. I went with my cousin and my dad, and I met some friends there. All in all, the You Should Know podcast, that was an incredible live show. I love the guys. Their energy is always good. The after party was so much fun. It was such a short, chaotic couple of days for me personally because I was going across the country, but 100% would do it again without question. Maybe a little bit better planned out once I got to Dallas and had to pick up my cousin, but that's a story time for another time that hopefully never comes, because it made me so angry and I raged in the car for about 30 minutes. But like I said, went to the show, it was amazing. Went home for a couple weeks. At the show, I had gotten a call that I got a job offer. And so it was really chaotic for me. It was really exciting, but it was like crazy because the show was about to start, but I was like, I know what this number is. I need to answer it because I need to know. So I was able to kickstart my weekend that night with a bang of getting a new job. So I was celebrating like crazy. And I was just really hyped. So then after that, after Dallas, I went home, spent a couple weeks at home, and those couple weeks were filled with doing all my onboarding stuff, figuring out where I was gonna live, and planning when I was headed back to Philly to move the rest of my stuff. None of this went to plan. Me and my dad head back out to Philly to get the rest of my stuff, which actually kind of made me really sad because I'd spent the past 6 years on the East Coast. And so I was picking up and leaving again, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm 8 hours from North Carolina, I can go down and see my friends. No, I'm back across the country. And there's so many pros and cons that come with that. Like, one, I absolutely love it. One, the scenery here is beautiful, but it's also a little bit slower pace, which for me personally, is really nice. Having that slower pace, something that's a little bit more calm, helps me out tremendously because I know my job is going to be chaotic and hectic and something new is going to happen every single day. So it's a matter of knowing how I thrive and then being able to also balance out whatever work looks like for me, which I think is huge. And a lot of that comes from knowing yourself and then knowing the role you're going to step into and what it may or may not look like on a day-to-day basis. Because like I said, for me, nothing ever is the exact same every single day, which, two parts. One, it's great because it's not something that I'll get bored doing, but two, it can be a little stressful. I probably do this 3 or 4 times a day because I want to do well. I want to not make mistakes, but as we know, mistakes are going to happen. It's about what you do after. And that's what I have to focus on. Like, hey, this is what happened. Here's how we're going to make these adjustments. And that's kind of what my day-to-day has been for the past couple months, to the point where I was so focused on getting into a routine and really settling in for work that I haven't sat down and made my podcast. And so everything in my brain has just been simmering. Luckily, I'm smart enough to put them into my Google Docs or my podcast journal so I can actually plan out these episodes all to say, we have some exciting episodes coming up. We've got some fun guests coming. Just a lot of good topics, a lot of things that I feel like not only need to be said for myself, but I feel like these are really good things to also hear from other people, i.e. the people I'm having as guests. I think for me personally, this move has been a challenge in the sense that there's so much happening. I mean, obviously, like I've mentioned, I'm 24. This is my first big girl job. It is something that is going to make an impact on me for the rest of my life. I'm either going to look back one day and be like, oh, my first job was probably one of my favorites. And when I say first job, I mean first career job. I want to be able to look back on that and speak of all the happy times, which I think I'll be able to do. It's just right now, it's so crazy that I work in a space where I get the chance to be a role model. And growing up as the youngest in my family, that wasn't something that was necessarily my role. As the youngest, it was, hey, this is what your brothers and sister have done. Depending on what it is, following their footsteps, if it's good, obviously. And here's what not to do. Obviously, to any of my siblings listening or watching, I mean that with so much love. So now that I'm in this space of kind of setting an example, there are so many things that have been recommended to me, suggested to me, and I've had the opportunity to get a new perspective on some specific aspects. So I've mentioned on this podcast time and time again that I struggle with mental health, depression being one of them, some anxiety in there, mixed with some other stuff. But something I never really ever prioritized in my life was taking time away and giving myself that grace to feel whatever it is in the moment and just look after myself. I think my second or third week at work, that's not completely accurate. It was probably about a month into work because the school year had just started when this happened. I got really, I think, overstimulated, overwhelmed. A lot was happening for me. And at the time, it was just too much for me to handle. And I went into my boss's office. My coworkers are incredible because it's not a go in, just, hey, and like keep going. We talk to each other. We really support each other. And this is just from the first couple months that I've been there. And it means a lot more to me than I let on. Just because I've never had that kind of universal support so like in my face. So this was like the first week of school starting, and everything was very chaotic, overwhelming. I think I got just maybe overstimulated, and I went to my boss's office and I sat down with her and I told her everything I needed to tell her at the time, which was a lot of like, hey, I think I have a lot of opportunity to do well. I said, but right now I am at a point where I feel like I am crumbling. And she looked at me and she goes, that is 100% normal. It is expected. You just started. This is something new for you. It's okay to feel like this. And for me growing up, not being able to do something or having to walk away for like time or space or whatever, no, you just push through it, power through it, get through adversity. And so this perspective shift came from my boss, who was like, you are in a space where you are role modeling for these student athletes. That includes taking care of yourself when needed. And so I remember I went home a couple hours early that day, and when I got home, I had just let myself feel everything that had bundled up that week. And I went back to work that Monday, the following Monday, and went in with such a different, like I said, perspective, because I was like, I cannot sit here, tell these student athletes one thing, especially when it comes to mental health or, certain things, and then turn around and not do it because, oh, well, I'm not a student athlete anymore. It doesn't matter. That don't fly. I want to be able to show them the best way of taking care of themselves, regardless of what that looks like in terms of, how are other people going to view you? How is your coach or teammates going to feel if you take a step back? Does it, what does that do for the way you think? Like, ooh, I feel like I'm not putting in as much effort, or I feel like I should be doing more. I feel like I'm slacking, when that's not the case, especially when you were taking care of yourself. Because I was told I cannot perform my best at work if I'm not okay. And at first it didn't really hit me because I was like, I've performed just fine under pressure, crumbling in the past. So what's the difference now? For me, the biggest difference is the direct impact that I have on other people. And for those who don't know, in life, what I want to do is make an impact on other people. And I cannot do that if I'm unwell. If I'm unwell to the point where I'm not being an example of these healthy habits, these healthy ways of living. So I can't preach to one of my athletes, hey, you really need to take a step back, take some time for yourself, look after you, explain it to your coaches, XYZ the third. XYZ the third. Well, it's Tuesday. I can't comfortably and confidently tell them that when I sit there and bundle everything up, bottle everything up, push all the emotions down. That's not fair to them, and it's sure as hell not fair to me. So I've really allowed myself to take time and space when needed, whether that be closing my door at work, whether it's taking my lunch break maybe earlier than I intended, just to really give myself that time to breathe and exist and remind myself at the end of the day, I am human, mistakes are going to happen. I cannot sit here and expect things to go perfectly, and I can't sit there and take all the blame when it's something that can be fixed and it wasn't an intentional, like, ooh, let me mess this up for somebody. So there's a lot of learning curve with that, and a lot of it comes with giving yourself grace, just because life is hard. Life is really hard, and I've expressed to a lot of my athletes that you can't do life alone, so don't bother trying. And I really mean that from the entirety of who I am as a person. I spent so long in my life trying to do everything by myself, try to handle everything by myself, and each and every time it ended with me crumbling and falling apart. It left me feeling worse than I ever did before. And so now, with this new perspective, this new idea of looking at life and how to approach situations, I really feel like I'm on a better path to not only help myself, but to help other people, which is, at the end of the day, again, what I really want to do. Regardless of what the job title might look like, where I might be doing this job from, like, I want to do well for others and help them understand that they can do well for themselves. Another aspect that goes into that is what the end of this month, the end of October, means for me. And obviously we'll get another video when that happens, but last year I made a video called 4 years later. This year I will be making another one called 5 years later. And now I'm gonna cry. So I'm not gonna get into, obviously, what comes at the end of the month, because I feel like that is so special for that video that I don't want to do it then. So all of what I can tell you is that I have been given the chance, the opportunity to make an impact on other people's lives, and I don't want that to be squandered away. This new job has really opened my eyes to a better way of taking care of myself. That doesn't look traditional. Some aspects are, oh, Jaleesa's, considering therapy. Jaleesa's starting the process for therapy. Jaleesa is talking to other people. Jaleesa is getting out more and not just keeping herself in the house. And I think all of that's really important for me because I'm so used to staying so guarded. Who I am now is not the same person I was 6 months ago. It's not the same person I was a year ago. There are obviously aspects and characteristics of mine that stayed the same, but there's so much about me that's different. Something that I want to say before this episode is over is that where I am now is not definitive of where I'm headed or where I've been. Where I am now is a result of where I've been and all the adversity, all the challenges that I've overcome since. But that doesn't mean anything to how I'm currently living, and it sure as hell doesn't mean anything about how I'm going to live. What's happened has happened, and it does not carry forward unless I purposely intend to. So obviously that would be my better habits, my better headspaces and better lessons that I've learned. But I refuse, and it's something I'm still actively learning and trying to do better. I refuse to continue to let my past, in a sense, haunt me, because all that does is bring me down and it makes me feel like crap. There were 1,000 ways I could have said it, but I like that one. But at the end of the day, I mean, I have no clue what's next for me. I don't know. Obviously getting through college, I was like, oh, okay, going to grad school. And then it became, okay, I got to get through grad school. And then it became, oh, I need to get a job. Now that I have a job, some people are like, oh, what are you going to do now? Like, I'm going to work. That's what I'm going to do. But it's nothing that for me, I feel like I have to set in stone because I can change it at any given point. I can decide to drop everything and go be a nomad. I probably wouldn't, but I could. But I think that is so huge for me because for so long in my life, everything had to be mapped out to a T. Everything had to follow the path, and if I fell off that path, I'm beating myself up until I figure everything out and fix it. Now it's like, oh, strayed from the path a little bit. Let's see where it takes us. I don't really like it. And I can do that. And I encourage everybody to take on that mindset of you can do that. I think I've mentioned it in previous episodes. Pivot as you see fit. You don't have to stay in the same thing you've been doing just because you've been doing it for a certain amount of time. You can up and leave. You can pursue the different passion that you've been thinking about. You can do all these things and then some. Once you allow yourself and you give yourself that permission, because it doesn't come from anybody else, it comes from you. And the final thing I'll leave y'all with is that growing is going to be difficult. It might put you in situations you never saw coming. But I encourage you to embrace every single second of it because it's going to be worth it at the end of the day. And so all of that to say, I'm so happy that y'all have chimed back in with Jaleesa, and I look forward to seeing y'all next episode. So peace.